It is the coldest, most isolated place on Earth, and the least understood. Buried beneath Antarctica's endless ice lie structures, fossils, and clues that could rewrite what we know about Earth's history and challenge our understanding of the ancient world. For centuries, Antarctica was nothing more than a blank space on ancient maps, an untouched, frozen world at the edge of civilization. Twice the size of Australia, larger than all of Europe, and holding 90% of the world's ice, Antarctica remains one of the least explored places on the planet. But as technology advanced and exploration deepened, something strange began to emerge. From ancient maps that show the continent without ice to satellite images capturing shapes too symmetrical to be natural, Antarctica has become more than a land of snow and silence. Whispers of hidden research zones, forbidden discoveries, and unexplained sightings have only deepened the mystery. In 2016, satellite images taking over the Ellsworth Mountains in Antarctica sparked a wave of curiosity. Hidden among the snow and ice, one peak in particular stood out, a mountain with 4 sharp faces and a pointed top. From above, it looked strikingly like the pyramids of Giza. This pyramid-shaped formation is located in the southern part of the Ellsworth Mountains, a remote range not far from the Patriot Hills research base. It stands around 4,150 feet tall and is clearly visible from aerial views. Geologists who have studied the region explain that what looks like a pyramid is most likely the result of natural processes. The mountain is what's known as a nunatak, a peak that sticks out above the ice. Over millions of years, strong winds, freezing temperatures, and cycles of thawing and refreezing have carved its faces into the sharp, triangular shape we see today. This type of erosion, called freeze-thaw weathering, is common in cold regions, and it can create surprisingly regular shapes in stone. Similar pyramid-like peaks exist in places like the Swiss Alps, such as the famous Matterhorn. Still, the shape of the Antarctic pyramid is unusual. Most natural peaks with triangular sides have just 1 or 2 flat faces. This mountain appears to have 4, giving it a near-perfect geometric form. That's why some researchers and independent theorists believe it could be more than just a mountain. They suggest that the formation might have once been a human-made structure, possibly a pyramid, now buried under thick layers of ice. These ideas become even more interesting when compared to ancient pyramids in other parts of the world. The pyramids in Egypt, Mexico, and Peru all share similar designs, wide bases, sloping sides, and a strong alignment with cardinal directions. Some believe this pattern shows a shared understanding of architecture, possibly passed down from a single older source. Others suggest that early civilizations might have developed pyramid building independently, choosing this shape for practical reasons, such as stability and symbolic power. A similar theory surrounds the Bosnian pyramids, where some believe large hills may be hiding the remains of stepped pyramids built in prehistoric times. Though mainstream archaeologists reject these claims, supporters point to the smooth slopes and aligned corners as possible signs of artificial design. The same arguments are now being applied to parts of the Ellsworth Mountains. Observers claim that some of the nearby ridges and snow-covered hills may also hide pyramid-like shapes. On satellite images, several peaks appear to have near-symmetrical lines and square bases. What makes the Antarctic formations so mysterious for scientists is the difficulty of access. The continent is covered by a massive sheet of ice, more than a mile thick in some areas. Only a small portion of the land is visible from the surface. Harsh weather, remote location, and international regulations make large-scale exploration nearly impossible. That's why the full story behind these formations remains hidden. In 2016, satellite images taken over the Ellsworth Mountains in Antarctica sparked a wave of curiosity. Hidden among the snow and ice, one peak in particular stood out, a mountain with 4 sharp faces and a pointed top. From above, it looked strikingly like the pyramids of Giza. This pyramid-shaped formation is located in the southern part of the Ellsworth Mountains, a remote range not far from the Patriot Hills Research Base. It stands around 4,150 feet tall and is clearly visible from aerial views. Geologists who have studied the region explain that what looks like a pyramid is most likely the result of natural processes. The mountain is what's known as a nunatak, a peak that sticks out above the ice. Over millions of years, strong winds, freezing temperatures, and cycles of thawing and refreezing have carved its faces into the sharp, triangular shape we see today. This type of erosion, called freeze-thaw weathering, is common in cold regions, and it can create surprisingly regular shapes in stone. Similar pyramid-like peaks exist in places like the Swiss Alps, such as the famous Matterhorn. Still, the shape of the Antarctic pyramid is unusual. Most natural peaks with triangular sides have just one or two flat faces. This mountain appears to have four, giving it a near-perfect geometric form. That's why some researchers and independent theorists believe it could be more than just a mountain. They suggest that the formation might have once been a human-made structure, possibly a pyramid, now buried under thick layers of ice. These ideas become even more interesting when compared to ancient pyramids in other parts of the world. The pyramids in Egypt, Mexico, and Peru all share similar designs: wide bases, sloping sides, and a strong alignment with cardinal directions. Some believe this pattern shows a shared understanding of architecture, possibly passed down from a single older source. Others suggest that early civilizations might have developed pyramid building independently, choosing this shape for practical reasons, such as stability and symbolic power. A similar theory surrounds the Bosnian pyramids, where some believe large hills may be hiding the remains of stepped pyramids built in prehistoric times. Though mainstream archaeologists reject these claims, supporters point to the smooth slopes and aligned corners as possible signs of artificial design. The same arguments are now being applied to parts of the Ellsworth Mountains. Observers claim that some of the nearby ridges and snow-covered hills may also hide pyramid-like shapes. On satellite images, several peaks appear to have near-symmetrical lines and square bases. What makes the Antarctic formation so mysterious for scientists is the difficulty of access. The continent is covered by a massive sheet of ice, more than a mile thick in some areas. Only a small portion of the land is visible from the surface. Harsh weather, remote location, and international regulations make large-scale exploration nearly impossible. That's why the full story behind these formations remains hidden. In recent years, satellite technology has allowed scientists and researchers to observe Antarctica in more detail than ever before. These high-altitude images have revealed more strange features scattered across the icy surface. Among them are large, dark shapes resembling doorways carved into mountain slopes, and even patterns that look like man-made stairs. These discoveries have puzzled many and sparked numerous discussions among researchers and theorists alike. In one case, a geology team reported finding the remains of a massive stone structure near the Doubleday Glacier. This structure was described as a columned building with foundations large enough to rival a Roman amphitheater. The discovery included stone blocks, artifacts, and coins bearing strange animal symbols. While no peer-reviewed studies have confirmed this site's authenticity, the mere suggestion of such a find in the heart of Antarctica was enough to spark a wave of curiosity and skepticism. One of the enduring symbols tied to the idea of ancient knowledge about Antarctica is the Piri Reis map, created in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis. This partial world map includes a detailed depiction of South America and a mysterious southern landmass. What makes the map extraordinary is that it appears to show the outline of a continent in the location of Antarctica, not with its present icy shape, but with a coastline resembling its actual landmass, as if seen without the ice. Supporters of the theory claim that such accuracy would have been impossible in the 16th century without access to much older source maps. The Piri Reis map, according to this view, may have been compiled using documents from a lost civilization with advanced knowledge of geography and exploration. This idea was popularized by historian Charles Hapgood, who argued that a prehistoric seafaring culture mapped the world's coastlines, including a then ice-free Antarctica, thousands of years before modern history began. Hapgood's theories, while widely criticized in academic circles, gained traction in popular culture. He suggested that the Puri-Reis map might reflect Antarctica as it looked during the last ice age, possibly around 10,000 to 4,000 BC, a time when, he believed, parts of the continent could have been free of ice. For many, the accuracy of the South American coastline on the Puri-Reis map is undeniable for its time. The presence of a large southern landmass, whether real or theoretical, reflects an early belief in Terra Australis, the unknown southern continent. Though later explorers would confirm Antarctica's existence, the question of how ancient cartographers envisioned it and how they may have interpreted older sources is still a mystery. Adding to the intrigue, modern imaging...
If Casey's prediction were somehow rooted in ancient memory, it raises a haunting possibility that an earlier civilization may have once thrived on Antarctica, only to be destroyed when the climate shifted and the poles moved. Could the ice be hiding not just the remnants of ancient forests, but also the traces of a forgotten people? Apart from all this, the Forbidden Continent hides many more secrets. One of them is Antarctica's subglacial lakes, hidden bodies of water trapped far below the surface, isolated from the outside world by kilometers of solid ice. Among them, the most famous is Lake Vostok. This vast freshwater lake is buried nearly 4,000 meters beneath the East Antarctic ice sheet. Lake Vostok has been sealed off for possibly 15 to 25 million years. In this extreme and lightless world, scientists believe life may still exist. It's one of the most remote and mysterious environments ever studied on Earth. When Russian scientists finally reached the surface of the lake in 2012, after drilling for over a decade, they broke through to a world that had not been touched by air or light since long before humans walked the planet. The water shot up through the borehole with pressure, mixing with the drilling fluids, and ending the mission before any proper sample could be collected. Lake Vostok is not alone. More than 400 subglacial lakes have now been identified across the continent. Some are as large as cities. Others are small and temporary, filling and draining like unseen reservoirs beneath the ice. These lakes are kept liquid not by the sun, but by heat from the Earth's interior and the insulating pressure of the ice above. They are connected by an underground network of subglacial rivers, creating what some scientists call a frozen wetland. In recent years, expeditions have reached a few of these lakes. Lake Mercer, located beneath the West Antarctic ice sheet, revealed something extraordinary. In complete darkness and under immense pressure, scientists discovered an ecosystem filled with bacterial life. Despite the lack of sunlight, oxygen, and surface nutrients, these microorganisms were not only alive, but thriving. Some researchers believe these lakes could even support higher life forms, like tiny animals similar to tardigrades or microscopic worms. Even more astonishing was the discovery of Lake Enigma. This ice-covered lake has strange structures and rich microbial mats that look like carpets and tree-like formations on the lake bed. These ecosystems include bacteria that had never been seen in such environments before. Some of them survive by forming relationships with other microbes, either cooperative or parasitic. It's a level of biological complexity that surprised even the most experienced researchers. In other places, as ice shelves crack and collapse, scientists have been able to observe parts of the seafloor hidden for centuries. One such event exposed an ecosystem beneath the George VI ice sheet. In an area that had been covered by ice for possibly hundreds of years, researchers found large corals, giant spiders, fish, octopuses, and other animals thriving in complete darkness. The size and age of these creatures suggest they had lived there for decades, undisturbed, relying on nutrient flows carried by deep ocean currents. In another instance, while drilling into the Filchner-Ronne ice shelf, a research team accidentally discovered a boulder on the seafloor covered in stationary animals like sponges and other unknown filter feeders. These creatures were found 260 kilometers from the nearest source of sunlight, in a location where scientists never expected life to exist. Somehow, they were feeding, growing, and surviving in conditions thought to be completely hostile to life. Their food must have traveled immense distances on slow ocean currents, yet it was enough to sustain them. However, despite the scientific breakthroughs, access to Antarctica remains extremely limited. Harsh conditions, political agreements, and environmental protections make large-scale exploration nearly impossible. Most of the continent is still untouched. Vast regions remain unexplored. And yet, from the few windows scientists have opened into this frozen world, it's clear that Antarctica is not dead. One of the things that no scientist expected to see in the white expanse of snow and ice is a bright red waterfall. Deep in the McMurdo dry valleys of Antarctica, this is exactly what flows from the front of the Taylor Glacier. Known as blood falls, this vivid and surreal feature is one of the strangest natural phenomenon on the frozen continent. Its color is so intense and unusual that for decades it stood as one of the most haunting and unexplained sights in Antarctica. At first glance, Blood Falls looks like something out of a science fiction story, as though the glacier itself is bleeding. The waterfall stands 5 stories high, and its deep red hue appears to stain the surrounding ice like an open wound. Surrounded by one of the driest and coldest deserts on Earth, this scarlet outflow is not only shocking in appearance, but also in what it represents. The scientific explanation behind blood falls is as fascinating as its appearance. More than 5 million years ago, long before glaciers overtook the valley, this area was submerged by the ocean. When the sea retreated, pockets of salty water were left behind and eventually sealed under layers of ice. Trapped beneath the glacier, this ancient lake became cut off from the atmosphere, light, and oxygen. Over time, the water grew saltier and more concentrated with iron and other minerals from the surrounding rock. Today, pressure beneath the glacier pushes this iron-rich, highly saline water through a fissure in the ice. When it reaches the surface and is exposed to the oxygen in the air, the iron oxidizes in a process similar to rusting and turns a deep red. The result is the natural yet bizarre appearance of what looks like blood flowing from within the glacier. But the story of Blood Falls doesn't end with its chemistry. Hidden within its iron-rich waters is an isolated ecosystem of microscopic life. Scientists have discovered extremophile microorganisms that survive in complete darkness and without oxygen, feeding instead on iron and sulfur. These microbes have evolved in extreme isolation, offering rare insight into how life can exist in the harshest environments on Earth, and possibly in similar conditions on icy worlds like Europa or Enceladus. Yet despite the scientific understanding, Blood Falls has remained a magnet for alternative theories. One of them suggests that Blood Falls may be a natural vent connected to a hidden underground structure, perhaps even a long-forgotten base buried under the ice. In this context, the red water is not just oxidized iron, but a byproduct of something deeper, perhaps artificial in nature. Others claim that the water is leaking from a biological experiment. According to them, an ancient or modern lab is hidden under the glacier, using iron and microbial life for unknown purposes. Although scientists continue to work tirelessly to explain the mysteries of Antarctica, there remain stories that defy logic and challenge what we know. Beyond the glaciers and subglacial lakes, beyond the fossils and ancient landscapes, lies stories that suggest this frozen land may still hold secrets far stranger than science has yet acknowledged. Among the most persistent legends is that of the Ningen, a creature that reportedly appears in the icy waters around Antarctica. Described as a massive, pale white being with a humanoid shape, the Ningen is said to be up to 30 meters in length. Witnesses from Japanese research vessels have claimed to see this strange figure rise silently from the water before disappearing again beneath the waves. Its face is often described as eerily human, with two small eyes and a wide, expressionless mouth. Some versions of the story depict the Ningen with arms and hands. Others describe it more like a smooth, finned sea creature, barely distinguishable from the icebergs that drift nearby. The first modern mention of the Ningen appeared in Japanese online forums in the early 2000s, but the legend quickly took hold in popular culture. Some believe the creature may be an unknown form of marine life, perhaps a relic from a time when Antarctica was warm and full of life. Others go further, suggesting it may be intelligent, even capable of walking on land. There are even those who speculate that governments know more about the Ningen than they admit, and that the creature's existence is deliberately kept secret due to its potential scientific or strategic significance. Another creature of legend, far older and more widespread, is the Kraken. Although most commonly associated with Norse mythology and the North Atlantic, the Southern Ocean has its own versions of this sea monster. In 2016, satellite imagery near Deception Island showed a long shadow in the water that many believed resembled the legendary beast. While scientists identified the object as a sea stack, a rock formation rising from the ocean, the resemblance was enough. Given that colossal squid, the largest of their kind, inhabit
The visible trails suggested movement across the ice, and the shape of the object, partially buried, half exposed, was enough to ignite a wave of theories. Some believed it was a secret aircraft. Others suggested something not of this world. Another satellite photo showed a strange oval structure half covered in snow, standing out against the smooth white surface. Its rounded shape and symmetrical design made it seem artificial. Some online sleuths claimed it looked like a large disk, possibly even a buried craft, slowly being uncovered by melting ice. Others noted its smooth, curved edges and proposed that it might not be a machine, but part of a larger hidden structure. Theories began to spread, suggesting it could be an entrance to an underground facility. But not all sightings appeared technological in nature. One of the most widely discussed satellite discoveries resembled a massive face staring up from the snow. Deep in the southeastern region of Antarctica, people spotted what looked like the frozen features of a large head, with eyes, a nose, and a mouth, all carved into the white surface. The image was quickly labeled an alien face by those who saw it, while others compared it to mythical beings or ancient statues. The idea that something or someone had left their mark in the ice began circulating rapidly. For some, it was another sign that Antarctica held the remnants of a lost past. For others, it was a modern sign of watchers still present beneath the ice. Elsewhere on the continent, a satellite view of a lonely iceberg caught attention, when it appeared to resemble a large ship tilted and half submerged in the sea ice. From a certain angle, it looked eerily like a cruise liner made of ice, complete with what looked like windows, a deck, and even funnels. While no one claimed it was an actual vessel, the sharp geometric lines of the formation led to suggestions that it had been shaped or perhaps constructed by intelligent design. Theories ranged from secret engineering experiments to abandoned relics from an unknown past locked in ice and slowly being revealed. Other photos and on-the-ground reports described perfectly preserved seal bodies found miles away from the ocean, high in the mountains. These mummified remains, sometimes hundreds or even thousands of years old, were found far from any known migration paths. No one fully understands how or why the animals ended up there, or what drew them so far inland. Some believe they were chasing glimmers of light on distant glaciers, mistaking them for water. Others suggest that the remains mark something more unusual, perhaps a change in climate long ago, or paths that existed when the land was different. To some, they are natural puzzles. To others, they are silent clues left by the past. Scientists around the world continue to offer logical explanations for many of the strange stories tied to Antarctica. They emphasize science, weather conditions, and geology. But for many others, the explanations are not convincing. The fact that Antarctica remains one of the most restricted and heavily controlled places on Earth is, for them, proof enough that someone is hiding the truth. The roots of this suspicion lead back to one key event, the signing of the Antarctic Treaty. On December 1st, 1959, just as the Cold War was beginning to heat up, 12 nations came together in Washington, D.C. to sign a treaty that would change the future of Antarctica. These countries, among them the United States, the Soviet Union, and the United Kingdom, had all been involved in scientific research during the International Geophysical Year of 1957 to 1958. What they signed was short in length, just 14 articles. But the agreement would soon become one of the most unusual and effective diplomatic arrangements in modern history. The treaty officially came into force on June 23, 1961. It declared that the entire continent south of the 60th parallel would be used only for peaceful purposes. Military activity was banned, so were nuclear tests and the dumping of radioactive waste. Scientific research was to be free and open to all signatories. Countries couldn't make new territorial claims or expand existing ones, and anyone conducting research had to share their findings with the world. At first, it all seemed like a noble effort, a way to preserve a unique environment for science and peace. Over the years, more countries signed on. Today, over 50 nations are part of the agreement. But it is exactly this sudden cooperation, at a time when many of these countries were otherwise in deep conflict, that has led some to question the true purpose of the treaty. The treaty was signed just 14 years after World War II. The Cold War was in full swing. The United States and the Soviet Union were competing in arms, space, and global influence. Yet in the midst of this intense rivalry, these same countries somehow agreed to completely demilitarize the largest unexplored landmass on Earth. For some, that timing feels too convenient, and for theorists, it raises one central question. What exactly was happening in Antarctica that was so important? Today, Antarctica is not technically off-limits, but access is strictly controlled. Only a small number of scientists are allowed to live and work there, and even they need special approval, training, and equipment. Tourists can visit, but only in specific coastal areas and under close supervision. The vast interior, covering millions of square kilometers, remains almost completely inaccessible. There are areas where aircraft are not allowed to fly. Certain regions are marked as off-limits due to environmental protection. Research stations can only be visited with permission. All of these rules are part of what makes Antarctica feel like a forbidden world. Some believe that alien technology lies buried under the ice. Others think Antarctica was once home to a lost civilization, perhaps connected to Atlantis or other ancient myths. There are even those who argue that governments are conducting secret experiments there, far from public oversight. The secrecy, the surveillance, the restrictions, all of it, in their view, point to the truth being kept from us.